I never imagined the popcorn girl's simple act would change her life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other Tuesday. The sun hung high, casting playful shadows as I rushed to the park. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a staccato drum. I was late, and I hated being late. She was there, as always, a beacon of vibrant energy. The popcorn girl, with her bright yellow apron and a smile that could light up the darkest of nights, stood with her tiny cart. The aroma of fresh popcorn wafted through the air, buttery and warm, intoxicating. My stomach growled, but it wasn't just the popcorn I craved. It was the joy she brought, the laughter spilling from her lips like golden kernels. The crowd gathered, a tapestry of face slaughter, children squealing, couples whispering sweet nothings. I loved that energy, how it wrapped around us, making everything feel alive. But something about that day felt off. A tension hung thick in the air. I could feel it, prickling the back of my neck. Then it happened. A sudden hush. I turned to see the popcorn girl. Her hands trembled, popcorn forgotten, as she gazed into the distance. I followed her gaze, my heart dropping. A storm cloud roared across the sky, dark and swirling, like a beast awakening. Was it my imagination, or did shadows dance within it? The atmosphere crackled with electricity, suspense hanging like a noose. Before I knew it, the world erupted into chaos. The wind howled, tearing at our clothes. People screamed, stumbling, rushing into each other. I struggled to stay grounded, my chest tightening, panic flooding my veins. The popcorn girl clutched her cart as if it were a lifeline, her eyes wide, reflecting the wild turmoil around us, and then she did something unexpected. She reached into her cart, pulling out a handful of popcorn. No, it wasn't just popcorn, it shimmered, glowed under the impending storm like bits of starlight. Her intent was unclear, a flicker of hope amidst dread. Was she offering a glimpse of magic in the chaos? My heart raced even faster as I watched, entranced. What she did next defied logic. As she scattered the glowing popcorn into the wind, time seemed to freeze. Silvery trails followed each kernel, lighting the skies like fireflies, illuminating faces, and echoing gasps. But was it a blessing, or a curse? The tension thickened, hearts pounded, and I felt an unfamiliar knot in my throat. The sky split open with a deafening roar. Rain poured down like shards of glass. The crowd, once vibrant, was now a chorus of fear. I glanced back at the popcorn girl, clutching her cart, her eyes now wide with unfathomable determination. She was no longer just a girl selling snacks, she was something more, maybe even a harbinger of the unknown, and in that moment, a question crashed into my mind, sharp and urgent. What did she unleash with her simple act? Would we survive this storm? My heart raced as I reached for her, desperate for answers, but all I saw was the chaos swallowing us whole. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain fell like an unrelenting hammer, a cacophony of droplets drowning out the world around me. It washed over the scene, but instead of cleansing, it heightened the chaos. People surged randomly, lost in a labyrinth of confusion, their shrieks mingling with the roar of the wind. I stood frozen, heart racing, my mind a storm of questions. Between flashes of lightning, I caught sight of the popcorn girl, her figure obscured by sheets of rain. She remained resolute, her cart somehow steady against the onslaught. With that moment of clarity squeezing through the panic, I pushed through the throng, driven by instinct, my heart beating a wild metronome within my chest. As I reached her, the world around us remained a chaotic symphony. Her vivid yellow apron was matted against her body, clinging drenched to her skin, yet her eyes gleamed with a fierce fire I'd never seen before. "What did you do?" I shouted over the noise, desperate for answers, but she merely shook her head, a mix of dread and determination painting her expression. "Something changed," she breathed, her voice barely carrying over the wind. I searched for clarity in her gaze, but the tumult of emotions swirling in those bright eyes mirrored the storm above us. Confusion mingled with a hint of hope. "We have to save them," she added, the gravity of her words sinking in. "Save them? Who was there to save?" My thoughts drifted to the crowd, scattered like leaves in a tempest. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just us caught in the storm. Each person in the park had their own battles, their own moments of joy disrupted. My heart tugged. Was it selfish to think of my own fear when tragedy unfolded around us? A flicker of movement caught my attention as I scanned the area, and suddenly I spotted a small girl, alone, her teddy bear clutched tightly against her chest, tears streaming down her muddy cheeks. The sight struck me like a punch. Before I could think, I dashed toward her, instinct clouding reason. "It's okay. I'm here," I yelled, though I wasn't sure if it would even reach her ears over the wind's howl. The girl looked up at me, confusion shrouding her beautiful brown eyes. Somehow, amidst the chaos, I knelt before her, instinctively offering my arms. She hesitated before launching herself into my embrace, her tiny body shaking. I held her close, whispering soft reassurances, out of the storm and into my strength, as I glanced back for the popcorn girl. I needed her near, her spirit intertwining with mine. We were kindred souls amidst this whirlwind. "I'll take her," I shouted back at the popcorn girl, my voice hoarse, still holding the child tight. Something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, perhaps? She nodded, and though I couldn't hear her words, I felt the pulse of purpose emanating from her. As I trudged through the rain, the little girl's heart pounding against my chest steadied slightly, but my own fear grew heavy once more. What did she awaken with that shimmering popcorn? I could feel a change in the air, a strange energy building, something alive and pulsing like a distant drumbeat. Suddenly, the popcorn girl appeared beside me, soaking wet but unyielding. "We have to gather everyone," she urged, her grip on the cart infallible. "If they're afraid, we need to show them a way forward." Light in this darkness, the urge to run faded slightly, thawed by her words. The storm's fury was still daunting, but her resolve bathed my fear in a warm light. "We can't lose hope," I said, catching her eye. "We can't let this darkness take over." We moved through the crowd as one, pulling families toward us, hearts swelling with a shared determination. Somehow, in the cacophony, we became a beacon. The popcorn girl began tossing handfuls of her radiant kernels into the air like little bombs of light. Each sprinkle shimmered, revealing faces of fear morphing into expressions of awe. People emerged from their panic, gathering around us, finding solace in each other, and in that budding connection, a subtle warmth threaded through the downpour. A sense of community flourished. I watched, mesmerized. As hearts mended, courage ignited, transforming the fear-laden storm into something else. But the rising energy around us was also foreboding, and with every flickering light source, a shadow loomed, one that made my heart flutter with unease. Then I spotted a figure emerging from the storm, a silhouette framed by the crashing waves of rain. It was tall, unmistakably marked by dark, flowing robes that danced with the wind, the face obscured by shadow. I felt an echo of dread spiral in my chest. "Who are you?" I whispered, the words escaping before I could rein them in. My heartbeat quickened, a syncopated rhythm against the rising tide of fear. The figure lowered its head, revealing a gleaming smile that looked out of place amid the chaos, and the storm around us intensified as their voice cut through, resonating like thunder. "I've come to collect." The wind howled fiercely, carrying the ominous aura of the figure's presence toward us like a plague. The popcorn girl's fingers tightened around the cart, her body going rigid as our gazes locked onto the ghoulish form. The people around us fell silent, tentative breaths marking a collective pause as we braced for what this new arrival might bring. With the storm brewing, my heart raced dangerously, battling a swirling mix of hope that flickered like the lights from the popcorn and dread that settled like lead in my stomach. This wasn't just a deluge, it had morphed into something sinister, and the intruder seemed wrapped in its very essence. "I've come to collect," the voice boomed again, each syllable laced with an edge that sent shivers down my spine. It was a chilling invocation, a diction heavy with implication. I exchanged a quick glance with the popcorn girl, uncertainty mirrored in her expressive eyes. Who hot was this figure? Collect what? I shouted, my voice emerging with more courage than I felt. Surrounding us, faces turned upward, the gathering crowd momentarily frozen in both fear and curiosity, connected by a shared frantic pulse of Lithia life that now felt fragile, like a flickering candle in the wind. "Souls," the figure replied simply, as though uttering the most mundane of truths. "You've illuminated the darkness, but it's time for the light-bearers to choose." Confusion rippled through me, and I felt the weight of all the gazes pinned on me. I was no savior, I was merely an ordinary soul caught in an extraordinary storm. "Choose?" I echoed, my heart pounding in resonance with the thunder above. "We're just trying to help each other. We're bravely tethering hope," the figure interjected, stepping closer through the curtain of rain. My fear gripped tighter, yet I couldn't hide the tremor of intrigue. But darkness still lingers, and with each act of defiance, a toll must be paid. The popcorn girl took a step forward, masking her own fear with fierce determination. "You don't have to do this," she asserted, lifting her chin defiantly. She held out her hand as if offering the glowing kernels, a gesture of unity against the encroaching shadow. "We can find another way. Love and courage can outweigh this darkness. But can you brighten your own hearts when they tremble at the thought of losing others?" The figure's voice turned softer, almost teasing. "What will you sacrifice? Each luminous act has a price." The realization hit hard. I felt as though I were staring into the abyss. Murmurs of worry spread among the crowd, and small knots of fear reformed in the depths of many eyes. The notion of sacrifice loomed over us, heavy and unsettling, echoing through the storm. My heart raced at the thought of losing those I'd just begun to connect with the little girl in my arms, the popcorn girl. "All of them, they'll do anything," I breathed, before the words could even find reason. My stubborn spirit surged, burning with a desire to protect, to shield an emerging community against this darkness. "Just don't take them." The figure's enigmatic smile widened, revealing a glimmer of sharp teeth illuminated by the flickers of light around us. "A noble yet foolish sacrifice." They extended a hand, fingers curling as shadows writhed at their feet. "But be warned, the light will always seek balance. When a soul is offered, darkness will collect its due." Fear mingled with desperation, and I turned to the popcorn girl. She held my gaze, her eyes a storm of turmoil themselves. I could see in her the flickering of hope, but also a haunting uncertainty. Would I be weighed down by my choices? Before a decision could brew further, an unexpected cry pierced the air, drawing attention from all corners. The little girl in my arms, whom I had promised to protect, suddenly pondered the growing tension around us. "Don't take my bear," she shouted, her voice small yet filled with a fierce innocence. She clung tighter to her frayed teddy, the levity of her love now a fragile weapon amidst the dark foreboding. As laughter erupted, illuminating the shadows for just a moment, the popcorn girl stepped beside me, a smile breaking through the storm. "See?" she whispered, her voice warm against my cheek. "Hope can shine through even the darkest nights." But even as her words anchored me, the grim figure watched intently, eyes filled with something inscrutable, a twisted mirth almost. "Hope is a powerful force," it mused, a slither of amusement in its tone. "Let's see how long it can endure." Then, as if set in motion by some unseen hand, the rain intensified. Lightning flashed above us, a blaze that cut deep through the chaos, illuminating the figure for a fleeting instant. But as it vanished from sight, whispers seemed to echo around me, "Choose the light, and suffer the shadows." Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a ticking clock marking us for some unknown fate. I turned to the popcorn girl, ready to confront this darkness together, but in my heart, a sliver of dread began to unfurl. What would we ultimately have to face, and what price would we have to pay? Before I could voice my thoughts, the world around us flickered, and with a crack of thunder, sudden stillness fell, leaving us hanging in potent silence, all eyes fixed on the ever-looming shadows. The stillness was palpable, a sacred moment suspended in time, heavy with unsaid words and fears hovering just beneath the surface. Thunder rolled in the distance, a reminder of the storm's wrath, while the crowd swayed like reeds in a gale, straining against the need for action. In that silence, all our hearts were beating in chaotic unison. The popcorn girl, the little girl, the onlookers all waiting, collectively teetering on a precipice. Doubt overtook me like a cold wave, a gnawing certainty curling around my gut. What happens if I choose? I finally dared to ask, my voice barely a whisper, laced with trepidation. What if I can't bear the weight of the shadows seeking balance? The popcorn girl's hand found mine, her grip reassuring yet trembling, a thread of warmth in the suffocating chill. You won't face it alone, she replied, her voice ringing with quiet defiance. We'll stand together, whatever may come. But even as she spoke, I felt the ground tremble beneath our feet, a stark reminder of the shifting tides. Whispers from the crowd began to rise, cautious yet hopeful, echoing off the cracked pavement as they contemplated our next move. In snippets of movement and gestures, they shared their uncertainty, but also their desire to remain united. That's when I noticed through the fog of anxiety the small figures circling the edges of our gathering, children, each clutching their teddy bears, wide-eyed with indomitable hope. A gentle reminder that innocence still thrived amidst the chaos. They were the heartbeats of this impromptu family we had forged from adversity, and in each of their eyes, I could see fragments of the bravery that had grown in the face of fear. Let's show them. A boy shouted, unexpectedly brave against the encroaching darkness. We can fight back. Let's make a plan. His words sparked a ripple of excitement through the crowd, igniting flickers of courage that spread like embers in the wind. Fight back? The figure, appearing once again in the remnants of the tempest, iterated with a dark chuckle, as if we were mere moths flinging ourselves at an unquenchable flame. The price will still remain, though souls are fickle commodities, and desperation invites a reckoning. A chill wind swept through the gathering, threadbare and biting. I turned back to the popcorn girl, my heart racing. What price would I pay? The question fell away from me, stark and raw. Sometimes, it's not the soul you think you're losing, she whispered, shadows fleeting in the glowing light of her eyes. Perhaps an enduring memory, a moment of joy. Those can be worth their weight in darkness too. Her gaze flickered to the little girl behind us, who stood, resolute, guarding her teddy bear, as if it were a lifeline against all that threatened us. In that moment, understanding flooded through me like the storm itself. The choices ahead might be daunting, but there was more at stake than just my fate. I could feel the pull of connections threading our souls together, binding us in an unbreakable tapestry of hope, innocence, and courage. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. A figure was running toward us through the rain, a mother who had been searching for her child. I hadn't noticed her frantic movements until now, desperation evident in her eyes as she broke into our tightly knit circle. Where is she? She cried out, scanning the assembled faces, a wild panic rustling within her. The crowd parted, and I could see her relief when she recognized her daughter among the other children. The popcorn girl leaned over, whispering that this was the small girl's mother, who must have been searching fervently through the storm for her missing child. But her joy quickly shifted to horror as she took in the figure standing before us. No, not him, she muttered, stepping back in horror, her breath hitching. I know what you are. What do you know? The ghoulish figure replied, its amusement palpable, an eerie smile spreading across its face. The crowd shivered, edged by fear, and I felt the tension spike in the air, a taut string ready to snap. You can't take her. She's just a child. The mother's voice erupted from her throat, the battle within her heart ignited by protective instinct and despair. In a whirlwind of emotion, the popcorn girl spoke to her softly. We have strength, we can come together, she urged, galvanizing a collective spirit. Despair is only as powerful as we let it be. If we face this, we might find a way through the darkness. The figure's gaze flickered with something darker, the shadows at its feet writhing hungrily. You dare challenge me, puffing yourselves up with courage? Remember, they sneered, drawing closer, for every light born of hope, shadows spread deeper. What will you lose? I felt the fear cascade back into our midst, swirling like mist, its grip tightening around familiar faces. Just as I opened my mouth to find solace in my voice, a flash of insight illuminated in the deepest corner of my heart. Then let us decide. I declared, every ounce of my being charged with reckless determination. Well, face whatever darkness approaches. Together. At that moment, as determination coalesced into the air, I caught sight of the little girl clutching her bear tightly. I thought of the countless fragments we could sacrifice, memories, laughter and despair. And as the wind echoed around us, a rumble not just of nature, but of something unnameable, I looked toward the future, poised on the edge of that choice, our next steps uncharted, fraught with the heavy weight of the shadows encircling us. Then let the light choose, the figure's voice boomed, voice threaded with danger, and let its keeper pay the debt. Before I knew it, the figure's hand shot forth toward me, a deadly glint in their gaze. I braced myself, knowing that whatever was to follow would shift the very fabric of our reality, and as the crowd held its breath, I realized with a start that I needed to make my choice, and that darkness was no longer a theory but a reality looming all around us, and it caught me unprepared as the figure's words sent shockwaves through our small gathering, revealing a truth I hadn't anticipated. The popcorn girl was more than she appeared, and so was I. The tension in the air condensed into a singular moment, an exhale collectively held by every soul present. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless beat that harmonized with the whispered fears and muted hopes of the crowd. That chilling figure, an amalgam of shadow and malice, stood closer now, its presence heavy like a storm's approach. And what had been an outside worry of mine, merely a spectacle of good versus evil, was morphing into a visceral conflict that bore an unbearable weight. Very well, I murmured as a fresh cascade of thoughts drenched my resolve. Would I allow courage to blossom within me, or would fear anchor my spirit? I turned to the popcorn girl, the tempest in her eyes reflecting back to me. What do we want to sacrifice to keep the light? Her gaze pierced mine, filled with both questions and answers. We must be willing to part with our comforts, the stories we hold dear, and perhaps our expectations. Her voice trembled with unwritten poetry, rendering the concept of loss tangible, familiar. The answer pulsated in the air like a heartbeat. Maybe it wasn't just about surviving, it was about how we survived together. From the periphery, the mother, still clutching her daughter, turned toward us, her face a mask of fierce determination mingled with dread. Please, she breathed, her words laced with sorrow, help us find a way. I cannot lose her. The little girl glanced up at her mother, eyes wide and trusting, a faith born of innocence. In that moment, a thread of empathy sparkled between us, the intangible bond of protecting loved ones knitting our hearts closer. I nodded, taking a tentative step forward, as if the very act might weave our fates together in this harrowing dance with the shadow. Together, echoed the popcorn girl, her voice a balm against the encroaching darkness. Well, harness our memories, what we cherish most. Their essence makes us stronger. But the ghastly figure laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated off the damp pavement. Ah, but do you understand? Memories are much like a candle's light, they flicker in the wind of time and sacrifice. Are you prepared to wean them from your heart? A flurry of emotion surged within me, woven with snippets of laughter, joy, and even moments of heartbreak. Each moment unlocked a new category of loss. The first time I learned to ride a bike, the warmth of a hug from someone I didn't expect to care. Would I let go of those simple joys for a chance to protect this fragile circle of connection? Did they deserve it more than I did? Then I say yes. I shouted, not just to the figure, but to every Anito, the spark of hope igniting in the depths of despair. I'll give up what I must to keep the light alive. Eyes flickered toward your direction, some in fear, some in admiration. The popcorn girl squeezed my hand tighter, sharing the same intensity of feeling, the very sensation that bound us together in this flickering dance of shadows and illumination. "I'm not losing my child." The mother screamed defiantly, the protective instinct surging like a released dam brimming with unshed tears. "We will not forfeit our love, our memories, they carry us forward." With hearts laid bare before the darkness, the others began to call out their own sacrifices, each voice a tether anchoring our strength to one another. A teenager stepped forward, voice shaking but resolute. "I'll give up my past, me regrets, the burdens that haunt me." Another voicey, an elderly man with memories of laughter and sorrow, lifted a quivering chin and added, "Let my laughter echo in the wind. I would trade my light for every stranger's smile." As our sacrifices formed an unbreakable web, the figure seethed, frustration darkening its features. "You think this will protect you? You will pay a price nonetheless. It's the way of shadows." Suddenly, warmth flooded my chest, merging with the rising tide of collective courage. A flicker danced throughout the gathering, hand in hand, a manifestation of bravery interwoven deeply with empathy and loss. But I sensed it moment before an impact felt sharp and electrifying as the figure raised its hand, a chaotic explosion of energy swirling around us, casting shadows that writhed hungrily, waiting for the dawn to fall. Panic surged in the eyes of the crowd, but more importantly, in the eyes of the little girl clinging to her bear. Fate flickered in the balance, and in an instant, as if the very universe held its breath, the world shifted, a jarring lurch hunched through the air. In that moment, an omniscient knowing swept through Meth. Popcorn Girl was stepping forward with an intensity that outmatched the darkness surrounding us. "Wait!" she cried, her voice cracking but embodying unwavering spirit. "I have something to offer too." With that declaration, she released my hand. Uncertainty gripped me, the threads of hope weaving through palpable fear. I felt a shocking chill calculate my dread as she turned toward the figure, her determination sparking something almost fluently mystical. But just then, the shadows began to close in. "What value do you possess, little one?" the figure sneered. "Do you even grasp the weight of the light you covet?" In that final heartbeat, when vulnerability and commitment weighed heavy on our hearts, I realized with dawning clarity, the Popcorn Girl's courage was far more significant than I could have imagined. The price she was prepared to pay could alter everything. But what could it cost her? And before the shadows could envelop us all, I whispered, my voice trembling through the chaos, "No, don't do it. We're not ready for what you'd have to give." It was a moment frozen, her expression caught in pure determination, as the world around us braced for the consequences. In that fragile breath of time, I understood we were spiraling toward a revelation that would shatter everything. What lay ahead, an uncharted chasm of sorrow or triumph, loomed like a gaping maw ready to swallow us whole. And the realization pressed heavily, the Lightkeeper's decision could very well rewrite the fate of every soul gathered here. As I reached for her, tears streaming down my cheeks, the truth settled like a shroud. I was deeper in this fight than any of us ever imagined, and the Popcorn Girl was about to change everything forever. The Popcorn Girl's resolve shimmered like starlight amidst the tempest. Just as I began to surge forward to stop her, the shadows grasped at her, snaking around her feet as if debating their next victim. That moment, suspended in an eternity of hope and dread, seemed to fracture around us, unraveling the very fabric of our collective fear. "Wait!" I called out. My voice was swallowed by the sinister laughter of the figure, a sound woven with the despair it fermented. The air thickened, charged with energy that could ignite 100 pyres, yet I felt only cold despair creeping across my heart. The Popcorn Girl, unfazed, spoke with a clarity that cut through the darkness. "You think you can intimidate us with fear, but the light we cherish is forged from Lovian energy you cannot comprehend." She was no longer just a girl with a sugary disposition, she was an embodiment of everything that tied us together, the pulse of our resilience. But what exactly was she prepared to sacrifice? The shadows circled her like vultures, hungry for despair, and I felt a swell of panic. I needed to understand her heart, what depths of vulnerability she was about to plunge into. "Don't you see?" I implored, desperation flooding my voice. "We've sacrificed so much already. If you give up your light, what will we have left? You're the spark that ignited our fight." She turned to me, her eyes reflecting a tempest of emotions: fear, determination, defiance, and something deeper, perhaps a knowledge that transcended her youthful years. "This isn't just about me," she insisted, her words soaring higher than the looming darkness. "It's about all of us. We can be more than this fear together, we can change the narrative." Her bravery bathed me in warmth, yet my heart ached with the weight of the unknown. "You don't have to do this alone. We're all in this together." The urgency coursed through my veins as I squeezed through the encroaching crowd, conscious of every gaze locked upon our standoff. At that moment, the laughter of the figure subsided into a low, seething growl. "You think their hearts will keep you warm through this abyss?" It spat, the edges of its form swirling chaotically. "You kiss the flames of sacrifice, but oh, how those flames will consume you." I watched as the popcorn girl stood stronger still, her small frame a beacon shining defiantly against the shadows. "And what will they consume in return? What is a sacrifice that lessens the love between us?" The reactions around us morphed, a collective energy energized the crowd. The mother clutched her child tighter, a silent plea roiling from her heart. She knew what was at stake. We all did now. One by one, more voices began to resonate around us, a powerful wave of commitments tethered to the bonds we had forged moment by moment. "Well, give up our regrets for tomorrows we may never see," proclaimed the teenager, confidence rising in his tone. "I'll give my comfort for the promise of hope," echoed the elderly man, tears glistening in his eyes. Each declaration ignited something in me, a sense of unity blooming amidst the shadows. Yet the figure cackled, a sound so hollow that it reverberated through the very marrow of our bones. "You cling to your memories, but understand they are weapons made for the heart that withers. Are you prepared for what you fight against? Your threats will never extinguish our light." Someone shouted, and in that moment, I realized this wasn't merely a battle of fear, it was a confrontation against despair itself, an affirmation that we were more than just flesh and bone, driven by love's intangible pulse. The popcorn girl stepped toward the darkness once more, her stance unwavering. "This is not about indulgence, it's about resilience. I'll give up my fears, my pain, my sense of being alone," she declared, her voice a clarion call that sliced through the oppressive gloom. "I will bear the burden of our light if it protects those I care about." As those words echoed, a profound silence swept over us, as if the universe itself paused to hold its breath. Time slowed, and for an instant, I caught her eye, the sheer vulnerability mirrored back at me. It ignited something primal within, a signal demanding I stand beside her in the impending void, to remind her she was not alone. Yet before I could take a single step, shadows twisted violently around her, snatching at her resolve. In that heartbeat, I understood, the darkness would seize her commitment, robbing her of the very essence that made her so radiantly alive. "Stop! Don't do this!" I screamed, lunging forward despite the waves of force crashing against me. With every ounce of strength I possessed, I willed my feet to move toward her, a futile effort ensnared by the figure's malevolent energy. But the moment was lost as an unknown force crackled between us. An unexpected pulse erupted, bright and warm, flooding through the darkness, streaming from the popcorn girl as her sacrifice ignited a web that connected each person in that gathering. And then, in the blink of an eye, the figure released a shriek that rattled my bones, an anguished cry as though its ancient power wavered amid the resurgence of kindness and sacrifice. But just then a dark shadow, carving through the Chao-san unmarked figure, appeared from the edge of the crowd. Cloaked in silence but emanating an aura of stark recognition, their hand rose to the skies, and I recognized too late the danger it heralded. Do not let her fall into despair. The figure intoned, voice like splintering ice, clouded with secrets of their own. Just as the shadows were drawn toward the light, various threads of fate began to weave in unexpected ways, threatening the fragile bond between the popcorn girl and our collective humanity. The clarity slipped like shards of glass slipping through my grasp. Was this new entity a savior or a harbinger of our doom? As the darkness roared against the brilliance of hope, new fears gnawed at my insides. For in that moment, it became evident that the stakes had shifted once again, and the very definition of sacrifice was about to transform a revelation that could escalate our plight into oblivion. As the popcorn girl's fate loomed uncertain before us, I stood paralyzed by the weight of an impending choice, one that could alter everything we understood about light, love, and the unraveled path of sacrifice. What truth loomed within the shadows, just waiting to be discovered? The air crackled with a tension that made my skin prickle as the cloaked figure stepped into the fray, the world swirling around us like a storm. The shadows, recognizing their new adversary, hesitated momentarily, suspended between light and dark. It was in that fragile pause that I dared to glimpse at the popcorn girl. Her face, once vibrant with conviction, was now shadowed by an unsettling bewilderment that mirrored my own. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling with an urgency that threatened to fracture. The figure turned toward me, their face obscured beneath a hood, casting a long shadow across the ground. "They are here to help, or to exploit." The line is thin. The voice was neither kind nor cruel but wove into the very fabric of uncertainty. "What do you want?" The words flew from my lips, aching to cut through the thickening fog of trepidation. "I want what anyone desires in the chaos," they replied, the timbre of their voice laced with an eerie calm that did nothing to soothe me. "Freedom from this drudgery of fear." The crowd around us stirred uneasily, their collective heartbeat thrumming with a mixture of hope and dread. I could see the glimmers of understanding flicker between them, a silent acknowledgement that something fundamental was at stake. "Do you wish for your loved ones to be free too, or are you resigned to witness their suffering?" The figure prodded, and my heart ached as I saw several faces turn towards their cherished ones, visibly torn between desire and despair. The cloaked figure took a step forward, their presence like a sinister flame that threatened to consume but also threatened to illuminate truths hidden in the shadows. "What will you give for that freedom?" they questioned, fixing their gaze on the popcorn girl. "What will you sacrifice for their light, and what will that light become?" At this interrogation, my instincts flared. "What do you know about sacrifice?" I shouted, my voice cracking with frustration and fear. "She's willing to give everything for us. Isn't that enough?" "Enough?" The figure laughed, a sound that pierced through the haze of the moment. "You misunderstand. The price of freedom can often exceed the cost of captivity." As their words hung heavy in the air, I could feel the shifting of resolve among the crowd. Doubt was a ruthless weed, creeping stealthily through our unified front. Had our bravery merely cultivated an illusion of power against an insurmountable foe? Yet even amidst that chaos, the popcorn girl stood steadfast, her resolve shining through the dark shroud cast by uncertainty. "What are you really asking for?" she ventured, her voice steady, holding its ground. "I ask for a choice, dear girl," the figure responded cryptically before extending a hand toward her, the smothering shadows sizzling in its wake. "A choice that may take everything from you to save what you hold most dear." The air swelled with swirling energy as the crowd caught their breath, the gravity of the moment weighing us all down. And as if each soul were tethered by an invisible thread, I felt the popcorn girl's strength momentarily falter. "What do you mean?" she whispered, a fragile exhale that felt like a prayer against the encroaching darkness. "Your love binds you, yet that very love is a blade that can cut deep," they warned, their cloaked figure shifting slightly as shadows swirled at their feet like restless spirits. "Only by confronting your deepest fears and unseating the light you hold dear can you grasp true freedom. Is your light worth that price?" The words hung in the air like the sudden crack of thunder, reverberating through everyone present. Hope dripped away like melting ice, pooling into a dread so profound it threatened to swallow us whole. I could see the color drain from the popcorn girl's face as her heart wrestled with the implications. "No. I won't lose that light," she protested, her voice raw with desperation. The shadows lunged closer, but a flicker of hope ignited in her eyes as she saw USA-gripped solidarity woven through the crowd of mourners turned warriors. "I won't let fear take your light," she cried, her voice rising amidst the gathering tempest, igniting embers of bravery once more. The very aura of her resolve seemed to ripple through the crowd, igniting an unseen flame in the hearts that had almost dimmed, but the figure only smiled, a knowing smirk that chilled my spine. "Then your choice is made. But understand, every act of defiance requires a price. Love may unite, yet sacrifice divides. Will you pay the necessary toll together, or will you face the chaos fragmented? An unexpected shift rippled through the air as whispers began to echo among the onlookers. Together, someone murmured, and one by one, doubts began to meld with ferocity. Man, woman, child, they all stood a little taller, holding the warmth of one another as we faced fear together once again, and yet, beneath that reinforcing layer of strength, a new voice rose, drowning out the tides of unity. I turned just in time to catch glimpses of shadows unfurling, spiraling away from the clutches of darkness, a paradoxical signal that someone among us might not be who they seemed. What are you doing? I stammered, shock splintering through me as I identified the source. The figure, once cloaked in anonymity, stepped forward, revealing an unsettling familiarity that shook me to my core. It was someone I thought had left us forever, someone swallowed by the very abyss we were now fighting against. Why have you returned? I gasped, the revelation twisting the air thick with tension. What do you know about the price we're being asked to pay? But their smile faded, replaced by something more akin to sorrow, and the figure's words hung in the air like an unshed tear. You will learn soon enough, the cost of love is always the hardest to bear. With a single flick of their wrist, they turned back toward the encroaching shadows. What truth would this revelation unravel? And, the question drummed relentlessly in my heart, were we preparing to face our destinies, or had we unwittingly sown the seeds to our destruction? The shadows loomed larger as the figure of my past stood defiantly, a living echo of everything I thought had been lost. My heart raced, each beat drumming a desperate rhythm of dread and anticipation as I struggled to reconcile this apparition with the memories that haunted me. What did you mean by the cost? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, vulnerable against the turbulent winds of uncertainty. The crowd stirred, sensing the shifting narrative, eyes darting between this figure and the popcorn girl, who still held her ground like the flame that shone against darkness. The figure hesitated, glancing back towards the popcorn girl, before looking into the faces of those gathered. You stand at a crossroads, they began, their voice tinged with a bittersweet quality that stirred old wounds. The choices you've made have led you to this moment where love can either be your fortress or your prison. No, I interjected, anger bubbling to the surface. You can't just drop vague riddles on us and evade the truth. Facing the popcorn girl, I could see the fury and fear woven together in her gaze, an intoxicating blend of resolve and fragility. We need clarity, not cryptic words. What do you know? With a heavy heart, the figure lifted their hood, unveiling a face etched with both familiarity and sorrow. I know that love carries weight, they said softly, voice strained as if merely uttering the words caused pain. Every joy comes at a potential cost, and every sacrifice leads to unforeseen consequences. I learned the hard way. Gasps ricocheted among us, energies colliding, some drawn closer, others retreating, the balance of trust hanging by a thread. You could have saved yourself, I urged, fighting against the rising tide of emotions that threatened to drown us. Why did you leave, and why are you back now? I thought I could protect you by stepping away, came the trembling reply, eyes brimming with unshed tears. I thought your path would be easier without my shadow darkening it. But freedom is never that simple, it lies in the choices we make. Their gaze shifted to the popcorn girl, a resonant note of apology trailing their words. A shudder ran through me, a visceral reaction clouded by disbelief and the remnants of a bond once cherished. Within the audience, whispers swirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest, each murmur weaving a fabric of uncertainty. Was our strength faltering? The popcorn girl, not one to waver in the face of upheaval, interjected, her voice steady. What is the cost then? What do we need to sacrifice to grasp our freedom? The figure's eyes softened, and I could see the glimmering remnants of affection and pain. You may have to forsake what you treasure most. Indeed, love itself may demand retribution. In that moment, I knew dread would be my constant companion, the shadows around us twisted in anxious anticipation, swirling like an impending storm. My thoughts flashed to everything I had fought to protect, each cherished flicker of light that had ignited hope in darkness. Then let us choose wisely, the popcorn girl implored, casting her gaze across the sea of faces, each one painted with stories, losses, and flickering embers of hope. If we must sacrifice, let us do it together. But just as the words left her lips, a surge of energy split the very fabric of the air around us, a turbulent pulse that reverberated with urgency. The sudden chaos broke the fragile unity, panic sparking as shadows surged forth, creeping closer, hungry and intent. Foolishness! The figure shouted, horror flashing in their eyes. The shadows can sense hesitation. You must decide, now before you find yourselves trapped in their embrace. The urgency ignited rebellion, murmurs transformed into cries of resolution, but within me, doubt wrestled vehemently with the fierce yearning to protect the popcorn girl at all costs. My chest tightened as fragments of old guilt resurfaced, carving into my resolve like relentless waves against a rocky shore. A single figure broke from the crowd in that critical moment, their actions swift but unclear. "What are you doing?" I yelled, but my voice was lost in a swell of chaos as they slipped into the growing darkness, swallowed by the shadows that loomed hungrily. "No!" The popcorn girl screamed, the sound piercing through the weight of despair. "Come back!" Her eyes flared wide, igniting fierce determination amid the shadows. And just like that, the world spun upside down, our brave united front fracturing into chaos as fear fractured our hearts anew. The figure I thought I had lost stared at me, eyes wide, trapped between hope and despair, as I struggled to comprehend the choice that lay before us. In that moment, the reality set in the illuminated facade of love was always only a breath away from chaos. As the figure stepped into the shadows, my instincts howled that they may possess the secret we so desperately needed or be a harbinger that would shift everything we believed to be solid ground. What price had we truly agreed to pay? And would we unite in defiance against the encroaching darkness, or would we turn towards the shattered hopes of an uncertain future? The winds howled like a wounded beast, wrapping around us as the shadows lurked closer, merging into an impenetrable mass that blotted out the light. In that moment of chaos, I felt the weight of despair pressing down on me, a heavy blanket threatening to suffocate any flicker of hope. The popcorn girl's voice rang in my ears, a haunting echo of pain and determination, urging me to act. "Come back." She had cried, but the shadows had consumed the figure, taking with them not just a body but a piece of our resolve. I could see how her entire being trembled, how the exuberance that once defined her was being gnawed away. The crowd wavered, uncertainty transforming allies into strangers. We have to find them. I shouted, the words clawing their way out, raw and desperate. The anger in me surged, churning into a desperate need to push against the malevolence that encroached. People began to stir, but hesitation felled many, fear wrapping around their hearts, anchoring them to doubt. No one spoke, but I could feel the urgency radiating from the popcorn girl beside me. Her beautiful, earnest features appeared twisted with anguish as she scanned the dark maw that had just swallowed someone we had all grown to care for. "We can't just stand here," she urged, her voice cracking slightly, betraying the calm facade she struggled to maintain. A flicker of bravery ignited within me. "Then let's act. We owe it to them." I stretched out my hand to her, the gesture a lifeline amidst the rising tide of anxiety. I meant to be her strength, but I felt the trembling fray at my edges as I caught the intensity of her Gaussian unyielding mix of fear and unbroken spirit. But what if we can't reach them? What if the doubt crept back like a shadow in her mind, pushing her words into the realm of the impossible? Then we try. I cut her off, my own fear morphing into mild desperation as I felt the edges of my resolve slashing thin. "I can't lose anybody else, especially not you." The honest admission seemed to catch her, shocking her veering thoughts into pause. I watched shadows flit behind her eyes, her memories dancing in the spaces between us. Her breath hitched, and for a moment, I could see her wrestling with the past. "You can't take this all on yourself," she finally said, lifting her chin up defiantly. But, within that defiance, I glimpsed the fear of being left behind again. I didn't know how to soothe that fear, but as shadows churned like ominous tides at our feet, an unexpected warmth ignited between us, a small flame against uncertainty. "Then we do this together. No matter what happens, we will face it as one. The determination in her widened gaze sparked a momentary sense of solace within the chaos surrounding us. It was fleeting and fragile like gossamer threads that dared to weave hope into despair. Together, we pushed into the swirling darkness, hands intertwined like a tether to our bravery. We held on to that flicker of resolve, intending to illuminate not just our path, but the way for the figure lost, but the shadows writhed beneath our feet, threatening to upend our balance. Just as I thought we found a semblance of direction, an anguished scream pierced the air, an echo from the unknown. "No!" I shouted instinctively, pulling the popcorn girl closer. The cry echoed with the unmistakable voice of the figure we had just lost, and the chilling reverberation in my chest reminded me that safety was now a far-off concept. Where are you?" the popcorn girl yelled, her voice rising above the raging storm, but the shadows merely reveled in their conceit, cascading into deeper depths of darkness that swallowed every sound. Then, as if summoned by her anguish, a new presence emerged from the depths of the encroaching void, a flicker of light glimmering amidst the shadows, shifting like a gentle flame in the twilight. My heart lurched, hope pulling at my very core as I saw a silhouette, unmistakably familiar. "Help me!" the figure emerged, but the words were met with a haunting echo, repeating over and over, each utterance entwined with fear and desperation. It wasn't the voice we sought, and the sudden realization crashed into me like a tide, twisting my stomach into knots. The popcorn girl's eyes widened, flooded with emotions I couldn't define, attraction intertwined with dread. "Is that?" her whisper melted in the chaotic air, uncertainty slipping beneath her bravery. "No," I insisted. Anguish in my chest tightened as I realized what it meant. "That can't be." But as the figure in the shadows stepped forward, I knew it bore a tangled history, a truth that could unravel everything we thought we understood. The shimmering hope fluttered painfully in the depths of my soul, swallowed by the growing despair that threatened to break us. In that moment, deep within the shadows, an unthinkable realization hit me like a veil torn away from the boundless horizon. If we followed the light, would we truly uncover the truth, or merely reveal the darkness that lingered beyond our understanding? The shadows surged around us, hungry and relentless, swallowing the flicker of light whole, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. My heart raced, caught in a tumultuous storm of fear and uncertainty. Could we harness our courage to face the encroaching darkness? I felt the popcorn girl at my side grow tense, her spirit wavering like a flame struggling against a bitter wind. With desperation coursing through my veins, I took a step forward, the ground pulsing beneath me, urging me to reach for that figure, that fleeting promise of hope melting away within the void. "But what if we are not strong enough?" she murmured, fear clouding her usually bright eyes. Her grip on my hand tightened, a desperate tether in the face of impending despair. A darkness swirled around us, committing to consume everything it touched. "We have to believe," I whispered fiercely into the storm, my words wavering as I fought my own rising panic. "Together, we are stronger than shadows. We cannot let them divide us." With that, I pressed forward, willing her to follow. The cacophony of doubt wrestled with the palpable energy surrounding us. Each step I took was weighted with the fear of losing her, but I couldn't falter, not now. We pressed into the swirling abyss together, the familiarity of her warmth beside me igniting a fire in my heart. The shadows danced violently, swirling and creaking, but my focus remained anchored not in the darkness looming, but in her resolve. "Look!" I shouted, spotting brief glimpses of that flickering light through the chaos, shifting erratically like a candle yearning for breath. She thought for a moment, hesitating, but I could feel her resolve returning. "If it's leading us to the figure, we have to keep moving," she finally stated, her voice infused with newfound strength. "We can't leave them behind." But I hesitated. My heart sank as a realization struck: the cries around us weren't only of fear. They echoed a shared history, heartbreak, and hope stitched together. I turned and surveyed the crowd, faces I recognized, all standing tall and resolute. Their eyes shone with a shared determination, flashing with a light that even shadows couldn't snuff out. Then I understood, this wasn't just about saving one person. It was about rekindling the bond forged through loss. "Everyone!" I shouted, desperation cutting through the storm. If we unite our voices, that flickering light can guide us through. A murmur spread through our gathered companions, a ripple of recognition illuminating their eyes. The popcorn girl, emboldened, took a deep breath. Together, she called, framing the chaos with her unyielding hope. Let our shared love anchor each of our lights so none of us gets lost again. One by one, hands intertwined, a chorus of voices arose, rippling through the void, weaving a tapestry of memories, voicing what we loved most: the laughter of children, tender embraces, glimmers of happiness amidst shadows. In that formidable moment, our heartbeats synchronized, becoming a resounding symphony against despair. The shadows hesitated, recoiling from the palpable warmth that radiated from our collective light. The air around us vibrated with a warm energy pulsing and swirling, and the familiar flicker grew bigger, more pronounced, as rays beckoned from the heart of darkness, and then, as if the universe itself sighed in relief, the shadows shrieked, recoiling under the weight of our light. I felt exhilarated, my own fear transforming into resolve. But just as I thought we had triumphed, a piercing cry rang out, an echo of agony that struck hard and deep. No. The unmistakable voice assailed my senses, intertwining fear and recognition, and I braced myself against the vision. My heart thudded painfully, a sob catching unbidden in my throat. It was that unmistakable figure, a reminder of everything we had lost and yet longed for. The popcorn girl's eyes glistened, a mix of anguish and resolve reflecting back at me. We can't let this darkness claim them, she shouted, pushing forward. As our collective voices rose, shrouded in unity and compassion, the shadows wavered, releasing the familiar figure standing at the precipice of despair, that embodiment of all-consuming darkness. But the cost would be steep. The shadows would not relinquish their hold easily, hiding the true nature of sacrifice just beneath the surface. And then, time slowed. I felt something shift within me, a surge of clarity as I realized that the darkness encapsulated not just fear but also memories. Every sacrifice made would mean letting go of an inch of the very essence that comprised our hearts. Forgive me, the figure cried, once again cloaked in sorrow, seeming lost and broken. I never meant for this to happen. The popcorn girl, fierce as a wildfire, turned to meet my gaze again, and in that moment, I understood the true meaning of sacrifice. It was not about loss, it was about acceptance, about recognizing that we are bound to our memories, our powers cascading within us like an infinite ocean. Let's guide them back together, I murmured, holding her gaze steady. Our love can transcend the darkness and guide them home. We linked hands and stepped toward the haunting darkness, raising our voices once more, fear countered by love, darkness matched with light. With every ounce of strength we could muster, we called out, not just for the lost figure, but for everything we cherished. As our words mingled with the shadows, the air shimmered with an unworldly glow. It was then that I recognized the core of our essence, the memories we had woven together. Always. I shouted into the void, the very spirit of our shared warmth pressing through the engulfing darkness. And as we stood firm against the tide, the light we conjured began to illuminate the shadows once more, pulsing rhythmically with a cerulean brilliance that swept through. Just as the darkness would try to claim the flicker of illumination, we fought against it, steadfast and resolute. I held the popcorn girl tight as the shadows pushed back, howling for what they lost, yet I felt the warmth of hope binding us as the past met the promise of tomorrow. Don't let go, she urged, her voice steady amid the raging storm. And as a final flourish, our voices broke through, woven whispers of love, laughter, and a future illuminated by advancing light. In that moment of absolute clarity, I realized that my heart had become a beacon. We were not bound by our fears, we were free to make choices lit by love. The shadows thrashed, but our unity surged, and a disruptive yet magnetic wave radiated from each heart standing alongside us. Breaking point, a threshold for an infinite connection. As the radiance illuminated the encased figure and they took a step forward, everything shifted. The darkness wailed, a forlorn lament fading into silence as the shadows relinquished their hold. We stepped into the light, collective breaths mingling and racing as one. The bittersweet symphony of memories and sacrifices transformed around us, blending with the new laughter born from chaos as joy blossomed amidst the wreckage. And then, as realization swept over me, I turned toward the popcorn girl, my heart swelling with a love deeper than ever before. Whatever storms awaited us could be faced together. In the arms of light, nothing can be lost, I whispered softly, the truth finally manifesting in the air around us. Together, we have built something worth fighting for, and as we emerged into the warm embrace of tomorrow, standing side by side, I felt the shadows recede. In that final heartbeat, the world flooded with promise, a new dawn rising anew from the ashes of what had been lost, and in that moment everything, despite what we endured, would always be illuminated by the warmth of love shared under an expansive sky. Together. Always.